Hello, I'm Odin, and it's been, 15 minutes since the last time I made a helmet, so let's make another one. Today I'm going to make the Lich King's helmet for World of Warcraft. So I started putting together a Pepakura model. I was able to size it with Armorsmith Designer to actually fit my head, and getting the paper model to start with gives me the scale that I want to work with and exactly how some of these shapes look in a tactile 3D way. This is a low polygon model, so I can't really use this as a pattern, but I can use this as a size reference, and that's what I want to do. I'm going to be using the helmet that I originally made for Mechagodzilla. I'll have to make him a new one, but I'm going to use this as the base so I can have a place to put the back of the head and the side plates. So I think I'm going to start on the side panel here, and Joe's in the shop this week, and I'm going to see if he can't make the back panels.
So at what point in this video are you going to cut to Raid Shadow Legends?
How about right now? Raid Shadow Legends. You've seen the videos before, and I've made some of them. But I'm happy to talk about Raid again because I love the art design. It's the design of the characters, the design of the armor, of the weapons, of the backgrounds. And it's the fact that it's all motion captured from actors, and that each animation is tweaked to fit the different champions. So they all have unique realistic movements or individual ways that they hold their weapons. There's no copy and paste shortcuts here. Raid has over 450 unique champions, and each one has their own costume, their own style, and most of them are pretty badass. Like this guy, and she's a badass, and him, and this guy is just over the top. Now, what do you do with these champions? Well, you level them up, of course, with solo adventures and PvP arena battles. But this isn't an endless grinding game of the same 3 levels. Raid Shadow Legends is always releasing new updates, and their biggest update ever is in development right now. It's the Doom Tower. It's 120 floors of super hard levels and even harder bosses. The Frost Spider, the Magma Dragon, the Tomb Crab, and they all look badass. And you're gonna need special teams and strategies to beat them. Now I can offer something special to any new players. Go right now and click my link in the description. You'll get an exclusive welcome pack that contains 50,000 silver, 50 gems, 5 mystery shards, 1 energy refill, 1 day XP boost, 1 clan boss key, and a free awesome champion, Hexweaver. You're gonna find all of your extra rewards right here in your inbox in the game. But be fast, because this link is good for the next 30 days only. Joe made the back of the head panels with 4mm HD foam. And I made the side panels from some 6mm foam. Now Joe glues some thin strips around each panel to give them a decorative edge, and I glue on the front edge of my panels. I start to add some 10mm foam to make the fingers on those front panels, and Joe used a grinding bit on the Dremel to add texture and weathering to the back panel that he made. In order to start on the top of the head, I pinned the back of the panel in place. I need to see how the shape will relate to each other. I have placed some 2mm foam on the back of the helmet, and I make a duct tape pattern for the front half. There's holes in the top of the helmet, so we're going to see these 2mm panels, and I want to be sure that I keep my seams hidden. I start adding layers to the forehead. I think this looks a little like a superhero. These points, I left them long because I'm not sure where the horns are going to go yet. I start adding the brows to the front, and I'm still just layering foam onto the helmet. Off to my right, Joe's been using a rotary tool with a grinding bit to sculpt the fingers and smaller details on the faceplate. And I start another pattern for the back of the head panel, and this is going to cover the seam between the part that hangs down and the top of the head. I glue together the darts that I added to help the panel wrap around the head. Joe will grind a reverse bevel on the edges so the panel will appear to float over the back of the head. Joe finished the sculpting work in the face panel, and it's looking really good. Okay, so the wings that go in the face are going to work really well. It's really happy to see this thing come together, but they're flared out in a couple of the wrong ways. It's foam. It's going to go where it kind of wants to go. You kind of have to help it, but these ended up being a little flatter. I'll need them to be curled back more and kind of be flared out more. So what I want to do is put a piece of wire along the inside here, and then I'm going to make a slit for each finger and put a wire into each finger. That way I can get the face to be bent the way I want it to get bent. So I guess it's time to get bent. I make a V-groove cut behind each finger, so there's space for the wire to go. And I cut and bend some aluminum welding rods to fit in each groove. I also have a wire to fit behind the front of each side. Now the front wire is glued in with a bit of 10mm triangle dowel. And then I cut strips of 2mm What-The-Foam. I'll use these to seal the wire inside the faceplates. This red What-The-Foam is tougher than normal EVA foam, so the wire won't poke out the fitter material when I bend the parts around.
I mean, I'm just totally going for it here,
Right.
but
Yeah, it's
figure we'll finesse it once it's on.
exactly, yeah.
We start to really figure out how the face wings are going to attach to the helmet.
I don't know, what I kept seeing is that these points point almost right at the rivet.
Right.
And that was always kind of my target. Even if the rivet's in the wrong spot, that was still kind of my target.
And we realized the front claws are a little too big to connect to the nose, so I trimmed them back and make them shorter. And then we start working on the nose cover. This one little piece connects the brow and both sides of the face. Joe cuts a small piece of aluminum to hold the curve of the nose, and adds tiny pieces of aluminum to the wingtips as well, since there is so little contact being made to the nose. While Joe got the nose connection working, I made 8 diamond shapes for the back of the head. Now these were cut and bent just like the star on the forehead from my Red Guardian helmet, and each of the diamonds are going to be glued over the dart seam that's on the back of the head. I just skipped the center seam for now because there's a ridge that I need to make later that's going to go there. While I figure out how to attach the face, Joe starts sculpting the demon head that's going to be the main horn on the crown. I end up adding a pair of triangle strips, one on the helmet and one on the face, which lets me glue the parts together.
Cool.
Can't turn my head. Very Batman.
Yeah, no, you're not going to be able to turn your head.
Yeah.
But that was great.
Okay, good.
Joe glued a wire between the horns of the demon head so it'll keep its shape. And I make a pair of small wedges of 10mm foam, which I glue in like a castle buttress behind the faceplate because they're going to help minimize the wiggle on the face. I cut a wedge of foam and glue it on over the ears of the helmet. I will add one more of these so I can have the 3 ridges that I'm going to need here. Joe starts to tackle the rest of the horns while I finish the eyes. I've just glued some 2mm foam around the eyes to cover the layer edges of the existing foam used to make the helmet and to smooth out some of the curves. Then I use a grinding bit to sand down the edges of the foam, kind of sculpting the eyes to look the way that they need to look. And I cap off the spot where the gem's going to need to go. You see the bulge in the middle there? That's going to need to be fixed before the gem can be attached. Now I start looking at the long neck that I need to make for that little demon head. The neck has 6 sides and it's curved. It's something that would be easy to sculpt from clay, but we don't have the time to wait for that to dry. So I placed a permanent marker inside the piece to prevent accidental stickage of the 4mm parts. The piece will sit on top of the helmet kind of like this. I just need to get the back ridge ready. Joe checks the fit of the 2 smallest horns. He has 4 of them finished now. I'm confident with the neck piece and I get it glued into place. To figure out the top ridge of the helmet, I first cut my shape from some floor mat foam. Then I cut the profile into this shape as well, and it looks like it's going to be just fine. I trace my piece onto some 10mm foam and cut the part out. My 1/2-inch hole drill makes a smooth curve in the back. I get the remainder of the crest cut out, and I use a grinding stone to make more of a cutting edge that goes on this part. I had left the bottom on so it'd be easier to hold while I was grinding. Now I can cut that free and glue the crest into place. I've trimmed the demon neck, and I get it ready to glue the head on. But first I'm going to super glue a 10mm round dowel inside because I don't want the neck to collapse on me. Then I use contact cement to attach the demon head to its neck. The horn or crown tips are starting to go on the helmet. Joe finishes the center back spike, but needs to do a raptor claw impersonation first. It's going to fit over the crest piece, so the bottom of the horn needs to be trimmed. Now Joe gets the notches cut out and seats the horn perfectly. With the back spike on, I start to prep the side horn stems. First, I prop them up more vertically, and then I continue to shape the form of the stems into a better shape. Joe is making those horns right now. The next best thing for me to tackle is the runes that are around the eyes. I'll first pencil them in, which was a good idea because I needed to fix the right brow. I spaced them out too much. Then I start carving the runes into the foam with a wood burning tool. I ground the tip on this bit smaller because I needed smaller marks, smaller runes. What I really need is a needle-like tip because the foam just shrinks too much when it's burnt.
Is that it for this one?
That's it. That be done.
I am tempted to run upstairs and write an advert.
Go ahead.
Joe continues to work on the horns while I go up to my office and write the raid spot that appeared earlier in this episode. Joe actually patterned out most of the horns. He wanted them to be symmetrical. He also did a lot of sanding and smoothing of the foam. He starts working on the next larger set of horns. Cool, that's looking great. I appreciate your help.
You're very welcome. So this goes...
And there is an even smaller set of horns on the forehead as well. One last set of horns goes in the back. Joe figured out the geometry and placement of all of these horns or spikes, and I do really appreciate all of his help with this project. And then, more grinding. And not just sanding down the base of each spike. Joe adds in all the texture details and battle damage that he put on the rest of the helmet. No piece of exposed foam is left with a clean finish. Everything has nicks and scratches and dents. The only thing that is not foam on the helmet is the large gem that's on the forehead, and Joe actually wanted to make that too. It's half-inch thick acrylic that was cut on a bandsaw, and then the sides were sanded down. And if the gem was any smaller, the sides would have been shaped with a rotary tool and not my large disc sander. It was then sprayed with a transparent blue spray paint. But the foam of the helmet that's behind the gem is curved, preventing the gem from sitting flush to the helmet. So I carved out the foam that was behind the gem, leaving a small shelf to hold the gem in place. It can still be superglued down after the helmet is painted. The entire helmet was covered in black Plastidip spray. First, it was painted with fresh, thin contact cement. That smoothed out the fuzzies from sanding. It still has a texture, it's just not fuzzy. And then it was spray painted black. The runes were added around the gem. We noticed that they were still needed when we were adding this coat of cement. When Joe told me that he really wanted to paint it, I wasn't going to argue. So he's airbrushing the whole thing with Plaid Effects paints. Now the paints are mixed 50-50 with a window cleaner to thin them down and to speed up dry time. And his airbrush is set to about 30 psi. If you add in setup time and the time needed to clean up the equipment afterwards, airbrushing really isn't faster than 3 coats of painting the whole thing with a paintbrush, but the results are so much better. And then he still dry brushes it anyway. Joe is adding in some bright silver paint on the edges and some of the details, creating highlights. And places where the metal looks scuffed and worn. This is one thing that the silver Plaid Effects paint doesn't do very well. It takes a few coats to get the dry brushing to look both noticeable and subtle without the paintbrush marks. Rub and buff would probably work really well here, but Joe didn't think about it. And he also dry brushed the edges of the gem a lighter blue. And then he uses some black shoe polish for a dark wash in different places on the helmet. Now, something he noticed right away is that the airbrush paint was losing its sheen when the shoe polish was applied. The polish eliminated the metallic shine. So the dark wash was carefully applied, and not just washed over the whole thing. It was applied selectively in small areas with a small brush. And we both really wanted the gem to glow. And there's a new style of cheap Harbor Freight flashlight that has a single flush mount LED in them. And these are really bright with 3 AAA batteries. But it'll still light up with a 3-volt coin battery. So I get the LED in place in the gem socket, and the small battery and a switch can be glued into the cheek near the ear. And then the gem is super glued in place. Most of the materials I used for this project I picked up locally. I put a list in the description. I can't tell you how excited I am to have this helmet finished and actually have it on my head. This has been a heck of a project to get finished, and thank you, Joe, very much for all of your help with getting this finished. I love the paint job, and this is really cool to wear. It is surprising with how big and ornate it is, how much good vision I have, and of course, it's real easy to breathe. This is a very cool helmet, and the light, yeah. Super happy about this. So I'm sorry there isn't going to be a pattern for this helmet because there really wasn't that much that was patterned. It was all made very freehand while we were just doing it. But I encourage you that if you want to make one of your own, to go ahead and do it. And maybe you've got the time to make it with foam clay or just out of clay and cast it. And please do. Heck, a 3D printed might look really good because I know that while in the game and on my head, there's only one Helm of Domination. There's going to be lots of different ways that you can make the Lich King helmets from World of Warcraft. But this is how Odin makes. Yeah, I know. I get to the end and my mouth is full of spit.
Right.
and I hope I'm not grunting like a Murloc. Anyway. Anyway, I'm not going to do that.
Is that well?
Okay. I want to thank Ben and Lynch, Eric Gordon, and all of my Patreon supporters. My Patreon support is the #1 thing that makes this show possible. If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe. Have an idea for something for me to make? Please leave a comment below. And if you make any of these projects, you can send me a picture.